We need to talk about Anora because this film just won 5 Oscars and shocked everybody, and now everyone wants to know what it's all about. In this video, I'll tell you and explain the main themes of the movie, including that devastating and heartbreaking ending that leaves everyone wondering what just happened. Especially because I've seen so many people be completely wrong about what the ending actually means, so let's get into it. Real quick, if you're new here, I'm MadMorph, and this is my channel where I talk about movies and TV, so please do hit that subscribe button. I would love to get this channel to 100k. Now, let's get into Anora Explained. So what happens in this movie? To understand and explain it fully, we've got to go back to the beginning. If you're looking for something specific or just want to get straight to the ending explained, use the chapters and timestamps below. This movie plays out in 2 halves to me, with it taking a very dramatic turn halfway through into a totally different genre. This in itself is really important to the themes of the movie and also the ending, but we'll get to that later. The movie begins in a club, and instantly the song that's playing is very important. It's a club version of a Take That song, and the main lyric is, "Today could be the greatest day of our lives." The camera just pans down this line of exotic dancers, all dancing for men sat in chairs, and we're just like seeing them from behind. The camera stops on one of the girls and zooms in, and we get the title Anora on the screen. This is our introduction to Anora, who is played by Mikey Madison, that she just won the Best Actress Oscar for. This opening is showing us that this could be any one of their stories, but tonight you are witnessing Anora's. The first line that she speaks in the movie is, "Hi, I'm Annie," introducing herself as Annie and not as Anora. This is going to be important. The guy who runs the club comes in saying they want someone who speaks Russian, which is Annie, and Annie is introduced to Vanya, a young Russian. His name is Ivan, but he says, "Call me Vanya." He says he hears that she speaks Russian and she says she prefers not to, but he can go ahead and speak it and she'll understand. Explaining that she only knows Russian because her grandmother never learned to speak English, but she doesn't think her Russian's very good, so she prefers not to. Where and when Annie chooses to speak Russian is quite important to the themes of the movie, so keep an eye out for it. Annie spends the rest of the night entertaining Vanya in the club, and he asks her if she does work outside of the club, and Annie puts her number in his phone. We get a glimpse into Anora's life outside of the club. The sun's coming up as she makes her way home to go to bed to sleep during the day. It offers an important contrast with the next scene when she visits Vanya's house in work mode, and it's a massive mansion with a private guard at the gate and so very different to her life.
Hi, hello, what's up? Welcome to my humble abode. Hugs.
Vanya comes across as such a young, goofy kid that I almost started to wonder if the twist or the turn in this movie was going to be that he's underage or something. He's so childlike in the way that he talks and acts, and the language barrier and the broken English does add to this, and it really comes across as harmless and charming.
You look beautiful, awesome.
Oh, thank you.
They go up to his bedroom, and for the purposes of this video and for YouTube's filter, from now on I will be referring to what people do in the bedroom as together time, because you know what I mean. And I don't want this video to be restricted in any way, so we're just going to call it that. This clues us in to the fact that Annie is not just an exotic dancer, but also working as an escort, having together time for money outside of the club. They chat a bit after, and she basically finds out that his dad is a Russian oligarch, very rich and very powerful. She continues to see, dance and more for Vanya during the day and work in the club at night, and he invites her to a party. She asks if she can bring a friend and is told yes, as long as it's not a guy. I didn't get the impression like she wanted to bring a friend for friend's sake. I feel like this is the thing of a woman bringing a +1 for safety, something which I'm sure in this industry they have to do all the time. Being invited to a party probably rings some alarm bells and makes you think, okay, let me make sure that I'm safe. She sits there and she watches him whilst he's distracted by playing video games, and we get the sense that maybe she's starting to like him, and she says, you know, you paid for an hour and there's 45 minutes left if you want to go again. And they have another quick time together. Vanya keeps finishing early, and it's all playing into this vibe of his boyish charms and childishness. But what's actually really important here is that Annie felt the need to offer to go again. She's getting paid regardless. Vanya is distracted by his video games. Why does she want to do more work? We might conclude that yes, she does like him and wanted to please him and go again and keep him happy, but note the subtext, the transactional nature of Annie as a person. She was just invited to a party and told she's allowed to bring a friend. There's an element of her having been given something and wanting to repay him for it by offering something herself. The sense of not wanting to owe anyone anything, and you see this transactional nature of relationships and love play out throughout the movie. It is a running theme, a core theme to this entire film. We'll keep checking back in on it and discuss fully at the end. The party goes well and they spend all night together, and the next day when it's time to leave and go to work at the club, Vanya offers to pay her to be exclusive to him. Be my girlfriend for the next week, don't go to work. She agrees for $15,000 for the week. So she moves in with Vanya, hanging out with him and his friends, lots of together time, drinking and other things, partying, hugging him while he plays video games, and so on. And this part of the film really plays out like a romantic dream, a fantasy, a fairy tale. They fly in a private jet to Vegas, they continue to party, just everything about it is saying dream come true, and just wouldn't this be the best. When they arrive in Vegas at the hotel, they're told the room isn't quite ready, and Vanya pretends to get angry to mess with the hotel worker. He's shouting at him whilst being egged on by his friends and then says, "I'm just kidding with you," and walks off. The hotel worker then swears at the bellboy, giving him a command to take the bags up. Here in a flash, we're seeing the hierarchy of power that permeates everything in this movie, another one of its main themes. Vanya is far, far above this hotel worker and treats him as such, and as soon as Vanya is out of the frame, the hotel worker is the top of the hierarchy and admonishes the bellboy who is below him. It's a very quick nod to these positions of power and relationships in work and life, and once again how things are transactional. We see them living it up in the Vegas suite, the fairy tale continuing, and Anora has been described by a lot of people as a sort of adult Cinderella. She even references it in the movie, but all of this serves a purpose. Laying in bed, Vanya reveals that he has to go back to Russia soon and work in his father's company.
Well, I'm gonna miss you.
If I get married to an American, I wouldn't have to go back to Russia.
It starts off as a bit of a joke, but Vanya says, "Let's do it, we're in Vegas, let's get married." Annie insists, "Just don't tease me with that, it's not cool." She doesn't take it seriously at first and mocks it, but as Vanya continues, we see Annie's face changing. The acting here, amazing from Mikey. We can read in her face how much this would actually change her life and mean to her. Written in her expressions, changing not just the weight of her life and her problems, but how they would all disappear if she married this one boy. So they run off and get married in the little white chapel in Vegas. The song from the intro starts to play again. This could be the greatest day of our lives as they celebrate in Vegas. The fairy tale continues along with the music. The music cuts abruptly as we cut back to Annie in the club quitting her job. She's told by the rival girl in there, "I give it 2 weeks." What's really genius here in this scene is as she's saying, yeah, stay jealous to this rival, and she's filling herself up with confidence as she leaves the club, the same song that we just had playing before during the fairy tale that got interrupted starts to fade back into the scene in the background. It gets louder and louder in the soundtrack, overpowering the thumping club beat that's actually taking place in the world. The soundtrack changing as she exits and going back to the fairy tale fantasy life. We then see Vanya buying her expensive clothes and them sharing human moments together. They have Chinese food, he puts a picture of Annie on his shelf, and them just having a great time. Seems like Annie's got it all in her new perfect life, but things are about to change. It's now 40 minutes into the movie, and we completely shift away from this kind of romantic love story fairy tale into what feels like a screwball tragicomedy. We cut back to Annie and Vanya, and she says, "You told your parents, right, about us getting married?" And he's like, "Yeah, sure," whilst he plays a video game. We then see Annie speak in Russian unprompted to Vanya, saying, "This is a good thing. Parents want their child to get married, right? I hope they like me when I meet them." They continue the entire rest of the conversation in Russian, talking about family. Note the difference from before, that Annie feels more comfortable around Vanya and is speaking Russian with him, whereas before she said she prefers not to. We're seeing her walls coming down with them being married now, and her being more Anora than Annie. But that's all about to change. Garnick and Igor arrive, who are the men sent to check on Vanya and find out if he actually got married. Igor is just some muscle brought along by Garnick in case Vanya's friends were there. So essentially, Igor is serving Garnick, who is serving Toros, who is serving Vanya's father. It's another hierarchy on display. At one point, Igor and Annie are left alone, and he says, "I'm Igor, you?"
Annie. I'm Vanya's wife.
Congratulations.
And the distance between these two just symbolically and very obviously on display with them in this scene. They confirm, yep, we're married, so Taurus is told it's true, and immediately leaves in the middle of christening a child. And then when Vanya finds out that his parents are coming to America to pick him up, his demeanor completely changes from being defiant to these two men in his house who are like underlings to him in the hierarchy of power, to suddenly saying, we have to leave to Annie.
Where are we going, Ivan?
I don't know where are we going, but we are going. No, we have no
I have to get
time.
dressed, Ivan. I have no fucking pants.
Okay, bye.
Annie literally wants to take 2 minutes to put some pants on, but Vanya won't wait and runs out of the door and escapes, leaving her behind. Garnick goes after him, and Igor's told don't let Annie leave, and so begins this just crazy scene of Igor trying not to hurt Anora, but her slapping and hitting him, throwing things at him. She's like a hurricane in this house trying to escape, and Igor is just forced to kind of get in the way of her and eventually hold her down and tie her wrists. And as funny as this scene is, and it really paints Igor as cute and charming, you don't particularly feel like Anora is any real danger of something untoward happening here. It's played for comedy and for laughs. There is this real human moment. With Anora's wrists tied, Igor says, let's tie her legs. And there's this just immediate change in Annie as she's like begging him not to.
No, please.
We get this glimpse of Anora having this massive aversion and fear of being completely tied up, having her legs tied as well as her wrists. She sounds close to tears immediately, perhaps giving us clues to terrible things that have happened whilst she has worked this job, or maybe even in childhood, because there's this kind of weird relationship where she doesn't want to talk about her father. It doesn't come up. She only talks about her grandmother and her mother, so there could be some real tragic story going on there, but we only get this glimpse at it. We're left to read between the lines as to why someone would be that fearful of having their legs tied. So rather than tie her, Igor just ends up gripping her and holding her in place until Taurus arrives.
No, don't do anything. Don't tie me. I'm not gonna run, I promise. I'm calm. I'm not gonna do anything.
You heard my boss.
Fuck your boss!
With Anora breaking Garnick's nose in the process when he tries to tie her legs again.
Excuse me, sir.
Taurus explains the situation, saying, you're going to get this wedding and this marriage annulled, and Annie disagrees. She's standing up to them, saying, I love my husband, and I can't wait to have his children. Get out of my home. And she's told, this isn't even Vanya's home. Everything belongs to his father. And he forcibly takes the wedding ring off of her finger, saying, this belongs to the father. This crazy scene leads to them coming to an understanding that they all want to find Ivan, aka Vanya. Annie agrees to find him, saying if she gets to talk to him before agreeing to annul the marriage, she will help them find him. She assumes that Vanya is going to tell them where to go and that he loves Annie and wants to be with her. And Taurus says, when we find him, we're getting it annulled and you'll be paid 10k and you'll walk away. Taurus calls her Anora, as that's what it says in her phone, and she insists on being called Annie. This call me Annie, not Anora thing is very important. As they leave, the cleaners are arriving and are told it's messier than usual, here's some extra money, don't ask any questions. The cleaner takes the money and they just go and get on with the job. Another example of a transactional nature of work and relationships, knowing your place and doing as you're told if you want to keep your job. Igor tries to apologize to Annie, but she's not interested. She treats him really harshly throughout most of the film. And they stop at Igor's place to get a strong painkiller for Garnick and his broken nose. There's then a whole bunch of scenes of them searching for Vanya, visiting where his friends work to see if they've heard from him. We see Igor do exactly as he's told when he's told to smash a sweet shop up. Without hesitation, he just does it. Like, this is his job. He does what Taurus tells him to. But also seeing the human side to him as Annie is cold, wrapping herself up in this coat, and Igor offers her the scarf that was used to gag her earlier to keep her quiet, and she acts offended, like, oh, you want to gag me again? Poor Igor can do nothing right in Annie's eyes at the moment, but she gets cold enough later to put it on. They search all over the town through the night and can't find him and take a food break in a diner. Meanwhile, Vanya has shown up to Annie's old workplace, the club, so her friend texts her to let her know that he's there. They drive over and find him getting a private dance from her work rival. He's completely wasted, and as a desperate Anora tries to talk sense to him about they want us to get an annulment, this is serious, Vanya is just laughing. He's only concerned about if his parents are here yet, enjoying the music and drinking more. Things move quickly because of the father's connections and power, so they get into a court in the morning where they can get it annulled, but are told you have to go to where you got married, so they have to fly to Vegas. Through all of these scenes, Anora just continues to beg a still drunk Vanya, saying, "You're an adult, we don't have to do this, you can stand up to them," but he never really responds to her. Vanya's mother and father arrive in a private jet to take them to Vegas to get this taken care of. Even after everything she's seen and been through tonight, Anora seems convinced if she can talk to the parents, it'll all be okay, smiling at his mother as she comes in, who just ignores Annie and chastises her son. Annie interrupts her and introduces herself as Anora, speaking Russian, saying, "It's so wonderful to meet you and to be part of your family." The interesting thing to note is the times at which Annie will represent herself as Anora and when she chooses to speak Russian. She's answered in English.
Ivan is not your husband, and you are not part of this family.
And your Russian is embarrassing.
Vanya doesn't say anything, doesn't stand up for his wife, just asks his mother if the jacket she's wearing is from a new collection. He's otherwise silent and ignoring Annie as they walk to the private jet. She's begging him the whole time to stand up to them.
Vanya, be a fucking man and talk to me.
What do you want me to say?
So we're getting a divorce.
Of course! Are you stupid? And thank you for making my last trip to America so fun.
Yeah, you had fun.
Igor stands behind Anora and witnesses this all go down as Vanya leaves her and goes on to the private jet. Anora refuses to get on the plane, and the mother comes out and says, "Are you coming?"
First, I'm getting a lawyer. Then I'm gonna sue Ivan and you.
And get half his money in the divorce. The mother just smiles. She says, "If you do that, you'll lose everything. Do you have a house, a car? All gone. I will destroy your life and the lives of your family and friends if you don't get on this plane." And Annie just gets on. It shows a different kind of power and hierarchy at play, that Anora has no cards to play here. These are powerful people, a connected Russian oligarch family, and she has to acquiesce. The family sit in the nice part of the plane in the comfy seats, and the parents chastise him, whilst Anora is relegated to sitting on a long sofa with Igor and Garnik. She is just one of the workers now again, doing as she is told and being put in her place. Listening to Vanya now explain that she's just an escort, I spent a week with her, what's the big deal? It doesn't have to be this big tragedy.
Glad to be divorcing your sorry ass. You are f***ing pathetic, man.
Are you serious?
You're a pathetic mother.
Блядь, ну...
There is this moment that Igor silently pours her a glass of water and hands it to her. She takes it silently and drinks it, and there's this split second where she almost starts crying, but swallowing the water in effect stuffs down the emotions of the moment. It's not just Igor taking care of her and giving her a drink to hydrate her. There's this understanding of, drink this, don't let them see you cry. A sense all through the movie that Igor understands this and is doing it as a job. He's just a worker, they're workers together, and he has this empathy for Anora. They arrive in Vegas and sign the forms, with Anora looking at Vanya one last time as if to silently say, "Is this really what you want?" He just puts on sunglasses and ignores her. She signs it and goes to leave. Igor stands up and says, "This may be out of line, but I think it would be appropriate if Ivan apologizes." Toros tries to explain to the family, just ignore Igor, he has been up all night with us, he hasn't had anything to eat, he doesn't mean it, to which the mum says, "My son won't apologize to anyone." It doesn't take much to understand that Igor saying this is a massive deal and something that nobody would really ever dream to say in this situation to a powerful Russian family. It shows the extent of his empathy for Anora and how she's been treated through this whole thing. Anora and the mother exchange some fiery words, and she gives back the scarf and the coat and leaves. Vanya just sits there after Annie's gone and says, "Goodbye, America," and then just gives the coat to the lady who has sat there doing the forms. It shows how little he has cared for any of this, how little any of it meant to him. That Toros was right about him all along when he said he's just a child messing around and it meant nothing. We see them flying coach, economy class, back from Vegas. Having flown in on a private jet, we are now seeing the two workers sent home in the manner of their station. This is where they belong. Annie sleeps and Igor watches over her. He puts his jacket over her to keep her warm. Despite these two barely having had a proper conversation throughout the entire movie, and Annie having treated Igor really unfairly and like a subordinate throughout, we feel how Igor's been looking at her this whole time. He knew this would happen. He sees her as naive, knowing that Vanya is a stupid child and treating her poorly, that she is a worker like him, and that he has empathy and cares for her. They're allowed to stay in the house for one final night so she can collect her clothes, and they've got to get out in the morning. We watch Annie shower, and even in the shower she keeps her emotions in check, not letting herself cry. Before going to bed, they sit and watch TV together, and Igor says, "Happy birthday to me." Yesterday was his 30th birthday, showing us his position and lot in life, that he doesn't even get to spend his birthday off, and he has to go on this wild goose chase because of the people that he works for. He's there to do a job. When he says, I like Anora more than Annie. She makes fun of his name, Igor. He says it means warrior. He asks her what her name means, and Anora says, "We don't care about that in America. We don't give meaning to names." Which is really interesting for this character to say, because she's not aware herself of the meaning and how important it is by choosing to go by Anora sometimes and Annie other times. She goes by Annie at work. Anora is who she is in her real life. It's a way of dissociating herself and distancing herself from the things that she does. The same goes for her speaking Russian. That is something that is for her. It's part of her personal life. It is not part of her work life. Igor looks her name up and says it means pomegranate fruit, light and bright. They have an odd, playful banter going on and bonding over the events of the day. Igor saying, "I tried to support you," and Annie accusing him of assault and kidnap and being a psycho, saying, "You'd have R-worded me if Garnick wasn't there." Igor's like, "No, I wouldn't have. I'm not like that." Annie goes to bed, but not before bringing Igor a blanket to sleep with downstairs. We can take this as an act of care from Anora, but it's actually very likely that she woke up with his jacket over her on the plane, has taken note of that, and this is her repaying him for that. It can again be seen as transactional, and that's not a diss to Anora, but what happens next makes me think it is so. The next morning it's snowing, and Igor drives Annie to the bank to get her $10,000 for going through with the annulment, and drives her home with her bags. Anora's getting ready to leave the car, returning to her old life. Igor says, "Hey." She turns around. He opens his hand and he has the wedding ring that was forcibly taken from her earlier. Anora shuts the door and sits in the car. Igor says, "Don't tell Toros," and he gets out of the car and carries Annie's bags to her place up in the snow. He looks back at the car, but Annie hasn't followed him. He goes back and he gets in and sits with her. She makes a comment about the car being very Igor and that she doesn't like it, and he says it's his grandmother's car. She takes her jacket off and climbs on top of him into the driver's seat, reclining his chair. She pulls up her skirt and puts his hands on her, and as she undoes his belt, they start to have this time together right there. Igor is just sitting there. He's dumbfounded, shocked, his hands where she put them, looking up at her. The snow covering the window from the outside, just staring up in her eyes. But then he reaches up, holding her face, and tries to kiss her. You can see this immediate resistance in this move from Annie. She's forcibly trying to resist this kiss. Igor wants to pull her in for the kiss, and there is some force being used here. Annie pulls away, forcing him off, and slaps Igor and punches him. He holds her wrists to stop her. And then, as she stops fighting, she just bursts into tears. She falls into his arms, crying into his chest, a full-bodied sob. Crying for the first time in the entire movie, the weight and the emotions of everything being let out in this split second, as he just holds her with his hand on her head, comforting her and letting her cry. And we cut to black as the movie ends, and only the sound of the windscreen wiper going back and forth continues as the credits roll. There is no soundtrack all the way to the end of the credits. The sound of the wipers eventually stops and just leaves the audience sitting in total silence as names appear on the screen. It is a heartbreaking ending. Following on from this fast-paced, insanely comedic at times approach to the movie, it just leaves you frozen and in shock. You're like, what was that about? It's a stunningly real and human moment at the end of this wild night and adventure. It turns everything that you've seen on its head in some ways, but what does it really mean? Why is she so triggered by Igor wanting to kiss her, and what does this mean? Is this now the love story? Are they going to get together, or was it just another transactional moment? So let's get into it. Here is the ending explained with some questions that people had about this film, as well as some other interesting things. This is a great time to like and subscribe if you haven't already and you want more videos like this, including The Substance Explained, the movie that this beat out at the Oscars and that Mikey Madison won the Oscar for over Demi Moore. Compare the two and see if it was worth it. There are many themes at play in this ending. This short sequence pulls back and shows all of the layers and themes of the film that you've just sat through for the last 2 hours in a 2-minute scene, like a perfect peeling onion. So let's go step by step and talk about what it really means. First off, some have said that Igor gave her the ring to get something from her in return, that he knew her to be an escort and was treating her like one. I give you the ring, you give me such and such, but that is 100% not true and is provable. He gives her the ring and immediately leaves the car. He doesn't even wait for a thank you. He just gets out to carry her bags to her door and waits for her there. We see him realize that she's not following and he comes back to the car. So we can see that him giving this ring was in fact not a transactional action in that sense. It was not quid pro quo. It's one of the only non-transactional acts in the movie, and it's again from Igor. Every other relationship is quid pro quo, something for something, but very few of Igor's actions towards Anora are transactional in the clearest sense of the word. In fact, him taking that ring back and risking his job and position is more of an act of defiance and an apology to Anora. He took a big risk to stand up for her earlier and ask Vanya to apologize. He didn't get the apology, so this is his way of taking it, of disagreeing with the events and the actions of that family towards Annie. The ring is probably worth something, and Igor considers it hers, and he's returning it to her. It's a little FU from the workers to the people above them. But even though this is Igor's intention, it triggers a transactional response in Anora. Her brain is wired to give something back when you receive something, and the thing that she most often and readily does give back is her body, to do a pleasing action. But don't get it twisted, it's not just a transaction. It's not just her being like, oh, you gave me a ring, so I'll do this for you. Beneath the surface, this is a defense mechanism from Anora, who turns back into Annie to protect herself. She can't allow herself to owe anyone anything, first of all, and she can't allow anyone to see the real her. The way that Mikey Madison portrays this scene, the way her body moves, the way she looks at him and climbs on top of him, we see in real time this transformation from Anora to Annie, the Annie who isn't affected by the actions of men and the people who hurt her and say things to her at work. She climbs on top of him with confidence. Would an emotionally ruined and heartbroken young girl do this? I don't think so. Therefore, I'm not those things. This is what she's saying by turning and tuning into this role, this other self that she has. Her own act of defiance, but against herself and her own emotions, choking back the tears earlier, swallowing them down with water, not letting them see her cry ever, burying them under this sense of herself as Annie rather than Anora. This is what I do, this is who I am, this is what I'm good at, and this is what people see me as, so let me show you. Igor, stunned by this, more evidence of him not expecting or inviting it, he just lays there frozen, his hands where she placed them. It's not until they've continued for a good bit that he kind of gets into it and decides that he wants to kiss her. Kissing is an intimate act, a personal act. It's known and portrayed often that S-workers may choose not to kiss their clients because it's seen as being associated with an emotional connection. And that's not what this work is about. It's reserving that for personal relationships and not part of the transactional nature of the job. It highlights how Igor isn't just wanting to bang Annie for giving her a ring or take advantage of her. He wants to kiss Anora. He likes Anora better than Annie. So why does she fight him? Because she doesn't want to let the emotions out. She doesn't want to be Anora right now. It hurts too much. So she hits him, but she's really hitting Anora back down, trying to stay Annie. It's this interesting flip on the conversation from the night before. She joked about him would have R-worded her, and him saying, I'm not like that. Anora isn't used to being treated as a person and not as an object. She's not used to anything coming her way that isn't transactional. But here in the car, he's actually quite forceful when he tries to kiss her. It seems somehow to be weirdly more offensive than the 30 minutes of fighting and being tied up earlier. This highlights Anora's own experiences previously and the boundaries that she has. But more importantly is that Anora is seen by Igor. His want to kiss her, his giving her the ring, her understanding that it's not just transactional. I don't see you as Annie, I see you as Anora. It opens these floodgates of emotions and tears that have been kept at bay for the entire movie. She allows herself to be Anora with Igor and she cries. We've seen her try to let herself be Anora a few times through the movie when she speaks Russian with Vanya or speaks Russian to the mother, this desire to be accepted, and she's never got it from anyone else at any point until this moment. She allows herself to then feel the heartbreak, the dejection that you would feel from being used for a week and tossed away. She allows herself to accept that the fantasy and the fairy tale is over. Did she really love Vanya? It's unlikely. She may have caught some feelings, but it's more about what he represented, the escape from her job, from her home, from her station in life, and from being Annie. She could have been Anora with him. She could speak Russian again. She was becoming herself in a sense, but contrast this with the fact that Vanya's name is actually Ivan, and everyone associated with the family and the family call him Ivan. Did they ever really know each other at all, or were they both just playing this fantasy? And here in this moment of realization of all of that's gone, it's just, you feel like a stupid girl that's going to have to go back to work, ask for her job back. It's overwhelming. When you watch it again, you really see the moments where those feelings have bubbled up before and been stuffed down. The Oscar was fully deserved. The credits roll with no music. Gone is the uplifting boy band club hit that started the movie and played through all of the scenes that were a fairy tale. We're just left there to sit in silence. The dream is over and we're back down in reality with a bump. And yes, I just talked about the ending and all of its meaning for like 10 minutes because it's that good. It's masterful and crushing and made me cry both times that I watched the movie. Did it get you in your feels? Let me know in a comment below. It's a genius masterstroke because the rest of the film builds up to this moment. It's a quiet crescendo that you don't even see coming. Like, it's like a train just hitting you from the side where you just go, where did that come from? It creates this real, like, break back to reality from the fairy tale moment for you as the audience. It's incredible. And that is Anora Explained and all of its themes that come to a head. So, did you enjoy this movie, and what did you think? It's got commentary on capitalism, society, class, rank, and the transactional nature of love and relationships, but above it all, just a fantastic film, and I was so happy to see it get so many Oscars. And that's Anora. If you enjoyed this video, please do like and subscribe for more like it. I recommend checking out the substance there, Explained, as well as all of the other videos on the channel. I hope you'll join my movie club and check out my links in the description for more of me. Until next time, thank you so much for watching. Let me know in a comment what movie you'd like to see me talk about next, and good night.